Welcome back, everyone. Michael here with Offshore Citizen. Today we're going to dive into a subject that is in the news lately that a lot of people are talking about. It's big in conspiracy theory circles, but it's big in crypto circles and a bunch of other places as well. And that is the subject of central bank digital currencies. Specifically, what is the truth about central bank digital currencies? There's a lot of bad information out there. So we're going to discuss what they are, what they are not, whether you should be worried, how they're likely to affect you, and therefore, kind of some of the considerations of what to do. So stick around. We're going to cover all of that coming up very quickly. Now, before we dive into that, there's something very important you should do, which is hit the subscribe button. It's a very, very nice button there. Notification bell next to it. Hit that one as well. I hope you like the video. If you do like the video, at the end, please, give it a thumbs up, or somewhere through it, give it a thumbs up. That would be great. Helps us with the algorithm. And if you guys are interested at all in international structuring, asset protection, international tax planning, so basically paying the lowest legal amount of tax possible, residencies, citizenships, payment processing, etc., anything to do with international business, then please reach out to us. There's a link down below, clarity.fm/Michael Rosmer, where you can book a call with me. And yeah, happy to help you in any way that you can. So let's get started though. All right, so what's the deal with this central bank digital currencies thing? I would say, to understand this, we should probably go back a little bit and talk slightly about Bitcoin. Okay, so cryptocurrency, Bitcoin in particular, was the start of a sort of digital currency revolution. Now, obviously, and this is one of the things I find a little bit weird about people talking about central bank digital currencies, is that currency has been digital in many forms for quite a while. Obviously, you swipe your credit card, you go online, you make a purchase, you check out your online bank balance, etc. All of this, most of the money in the world is just exchanged as, ones and zeros within computers, right? And so how is this different? There's this idea that Bitcoin came, which is that you have kind of a decentralized blockchain network, which obviously has a bunch of different cool properties to it. We have some other videos on that if you want to go check them out. And it kind of got people thinking of digital currency in a different way, right? A way that could be verified, that could be validated, that could be tracked, all these transactions. And it seems that central banks around the world are starting to catch on to the idea that this would be a great thing for them. And it is not something that should make you excited for a cryptocurrency, right? Some people are kind of like, oh, this is a validation of crypto. Those people are crazy. This is, even if you throw around the term cryptocurrency, it's nothing like the crypto vision of decentralized, uncontrolled government currency. This is centrally controlled government currency. Now, so that's the first thing. And what we're kind of seeing here, look, the move to digital money is inevitable. So if anyone's wondering like, hey, is this going to happen? Guaranteed money will be digital. Guaranteed, okay? No chance that we will ever have a future where money does not go digital. And it just makes sense, right? Like, why would you have these little pieces of paper and these coins that you're carrying around if you could do everything digitally? Now, of course, if you look at some places, they're already highly cashless. For instance, Sweden. Cash is definitely not common, right? It's the norm to pay with, have a cashless society. So how is central bank digital currencies different from this? Well, the answer is that right now, first of all, of course, you've got money that's printed by the mint, and central banks, etc., tend to put money into the system. And then what happens, it gets leveraged up through credit via the banks. Now, there's no intrinsic reason to believe that this process of banks leveraging up money into credit is going to stop. That's probably not. It's probably likely that that will continue. What's the bigger deal here is that central banks right now don't track, it's not a central tracking mechanism between this network of banks, okay? A dollar isn't a thing that goes from one place to another and you can follow it around. That's not what happens, Basically, there's a number that gets changed on two different ledgers, right? You debit one bank account and you add to another bank account. And in theory, there could be discrepancies between there, and that could cause all kinds of other problems. And that's a whole other, how that would get dealt with is a subject for another video. But here, it would be centralized, right? And that's kind of interesting. That in itself is a little bit scary, because in theory, you're opening up a big police state. So the country that's leading on this, unsurprisingly, is China, right? China's right now testing their central bank digital currency, and there are indications that's going pretty well for them. They were already very ahead in mobile payments and things like this. They're kind of competing with Alipay and WePay and things like this. And, you know, being able to provide people with their own digital wallet. Now, where we get a little bit of kind of misinformation here is two things. So the first is some people seem to imply that this would be a different currency. This is not true, okay? So it's not like, hey, we're gonna get rid of the dollar and replace it with the Fed coin or something like that. No, that's not the case. It would still be the US dollar. It would simply be a digital version of the US dollar, okay? Likewise, the Chinese are not getting rid of the RMB. They're not, like, the story that is getting told in certain circles is, hey, they realize their fiat systems are crashing because of all the debt and they're gonna have to do a debt reset and they're gonna have to go and do this. Now, the conversation around, because for those of you who followed, there's some stuff around the IMF and a great reset and all these different things. That's a subject for another video. We'll talk about that sometime in the future. But that's not what we're talking about here. What we're talking about here is basically digitizing this. Now, that also doesn't eliminate the banking system, okay? All the stories are that the banking system will be kept in parallel to this. Now, there is some idea that you could have a bank account at the central bank, right? And I actually consider that kind of to be a good thing. Really, the idea of banks as deposit-taking institutions or transactional institutions is coming to an end in all likelihood. Just check to make sure my microphone's still working there. That's coming to the end in most senses. It's not a very profitable business for them. They're honestly creating more friction than I would say they're adding value. And so what we're seeing already, of course, is these fintech companies providing layers of abstraction on top of it. So, you know, you'll have YOLO Bank or something in the States that is running on top of Evolve. There's one I just signed up for this week. I can't remember. Anyway, again, banking is being like a banking base is being provided as a service to all these fintech companies, right? And the fintechs are providing this user experience layer, which allows, you know, people to transact more easily, have a better user experience, et cetera, et cetera. So that stuff's, you know, happening, and I don't know that the traditional banks add a lot of value there. The banks will probably stick around in terms of a lending arm, and you can just kind of think about this logically. Who's got really powerful lobbyists? Who's very ingrained in the government systems, et cetera? The bankers do. Of course they do. So do you think that they're somehow going to have a government that's going to come in and say, oh, get rid of the banks? No. The banks will still be there. I wouldn't be worried about that at all. So it's the same currency, okay? When you talk about central bank digital currency, it's the same thing. It's just issued and controlled by the central bank using, you know, probably some sort of a cryptographic method. Of course, it could vary country to country. The protocols and the technologies that are used, et cetera, allow them to track it. And, you know, that's pretty straightforward. Now, the next thing is, hey, does this mean a central world currency? There is some talk of the idea that the IMF would issue kind of a central bank digital currency. So this is much more skeptical, okay? It is possible that the IMF brings in their own currency so that if they're lending money to, you know, third world countries or whoever doing some sort of bailout from that standpoint, that it could be issued in this new currency. And who knows what would back that or how that would work, et cetera. That's a whole other period of speculation. That would not replace something like the US dollar, the Chinese RMB, the Russian ruble, the euro, et cetera. The likelihood that any of these countries gives up their currency sovereignty is virtually non-existent. Okay, like it's just not, you just kind of have to think about this from the perspective of power. If you're the United States, you have the world's reserve currency, you have the US dollar. Why on earth would you want to give that up over to the IMF? Like, who's going to sign up for that? That's just, yeah, it's just crazy. Now, the other question that some people have is around the timeline on this stuff. Some people are like, oh, you know, in January, they're going to, you know, flood the system with debt. They're going to break things down and they're going to come in with this new central bank digital currency. No, will not happen. Why not? Because it's really, really technically challenging to do these things. Okay, so I'm developing some software right now. It's actually pretty sophisticated software, but, you know, the number of players, the number of things that need to be integrated, the number, like all this stuff is really, really challenging. Just the software execution part on its own of a project like a central bank digital currency is very challenging. Then integrating it into the world so that people can actually send and receive money, getting people signed up, etc. You're talking about a many-year process. Like, I would be surprised if you have any sort of widespread adoption. Like, look, in China, they're testing it with a small number of people, like, I don't know, a few million people, and I'm trying to remember, I think it's 3 million wallets or something like that. They've done a few hundred million in transactions, which might sound like a lot, but not really, right? China's, 1.4 billion people or so. I mean, it will take them probably a few years to roll out this system, and they will almost certainly roll this system out. You start looking across the world, I mean, China's much, much faster at doing things. You can see in how quick they build hospitals and all these sorts of things. I mean, they're on top of it. And so this is not going to be something you're going to see anytime in the near future. You may hear them start making plans about it and talking about it and things like this, but realistically, that will not happen probably from now until a couple of years out. So yes, central bank digital currencies are coming. No, they're not replacing the existing currency. No, it's not coming very quickly. It will take quite a bit of time, and it is possible that the IMF will try bringing out their own. The problem would be like, what's the impetus for it? How is it backed? How is it, I think they'd have a hard time with it, but we will see. Anyway, that's, kind of the DL on the whole subject. I hope it, kind of just fills some things in for those of you who haven't heard of it before, or for people who have been hearing all sorts of wild things, and gives a little bit of clarity. And so it leads to, well, what should you be doing? Well, so here's the thing that I do think is relevant to you. What is relevant to you is, I think, a certain degree of privacy and freedom to do what you want, because it is a little bit eerie that they would know every transaction, they could easily engage with every transaction and prevent transactions, right? It's a lot of control. It's like, in my opinion, centralized power is really dangerous. You need checks and balances on power, and I don't hear plans for checks and balances within this system. So to me, that comes into, it's good to have some alternatives. So, having some cryptocurrency, having some things like this, maybe being diversified into multiple economies, etc. These are smart things today. So anyway, take that for what it's worth. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you haven't already, please click the subscribe button, click the notification bell. And like I said, if you want assistance with, international tax planning, asset protection, residency, citizenship, you want to get out of your country and, go and be somewhere else, get set up, start preparing for a second citizenship or something like that, then by all means, please reach out to me. There's a link below, clarity.fm/Michael Rosmer. You can check out our websites, offshorecitizen.net, offshorecapitalist.com, and I'm going to see you guys on the next video.